I say something.
Hello. Adventure.
Love.
Connection.
Risk.
Passion.
Evolution.
Play.
Life. The Archetypal Tarot Podcast. Provocative mythology for the 21st century.
Hello, and welcome to the Archetypal Tarot Podcast. This is Cyndera Quackenbush. Julienne Javot has moved to Hawaii, and I really, really miss her. But I am very excited to say that I will be on my way to visit her in Hawaii in a few days, and we will hopefully be coming to you with another new podcast and maybe a video, so stay tuned. But until then, I'm very excited to welcome our guest today on the Archetypal Tarot Podcast. We have Angelo Nasios, who's the author of the new book, Tarot, Unlocking the Arcana. So a little bit about Angelo Nasios. He is from Long Island, New York. He was awarded the Tarot Professionals Tarot Sophist of the Year for 2011. He has been studying tarot for over a decade and has been sharing his passion for it through informative YouTube channel videos. Currently working towards his bachelor's degree in philosophy and religion, Angelo has a deeply rooted passion for history and understanding the human condition through different disciplines. Welcome to the show, Angelo.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, great. Do I detect some Greek ancestry in that name of yours?
Oh, no, it's a good old Siberian name.
Oh, is it Siberian?
No, I am full-blooded Greek.
Oh, you are full-blooded Greek. Wow.
Yeah, with a little Cypriot in there.
Well, I just visited Crete last summer. It was probably the most amazing experience of my life.
Yeah, the islands are very nice.
We'll have to talk sometime about the ancient Crete and the Minoans and Greek mythology. Maybe it'll come into our conversation today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm Greek. I make everything Greek.
It's all Greek to me.
Exactly.
Well, welcome to the show. And so we wanted to ask you about, and, you know, I'm cheating here because I've read your book, but you have a cute story about how you came to the tarot and what was your introduction like?
So, yeah, my introduction to tarot, I was about I was 13. I was in 8th grade, middle school, and I befriended the goth kids there. There was a small group of goth kids, you know, with black clothing and the boots and, you know, the black hair, or, you know, and they were, you know, doing Wiccan stuff, you know, they were, you know, practicing magic, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And, you know, during that time, you know, early 2000s, you know, 2002, this was about, you know, we had Harry Potter on TV, we had, you know, Charmed and Sabrina and all this, you know, occult fun stuff. And I was like, oh, I want to do something magical. I want to be magical. So, you know, I kind of, yeah, like what kid doesn't want to be magical? You know,
right.
When you're 13, you have no power. So I guess, you know, you think you can somehow gain some power from some book. But so I wanted to be like Harry Potter. So I was, you know, delving into Wicca a little bit. But at the time, I was so guiltful that I kind of stopped and I you know, put that aside. I went to a store where these girls got me a book on witchcraft. I went there to like look around, and I came across the tarot decks. They had a whole section of tarot cards at the store, and the second that I saw the cards, I knew, I was like, oh, I have to have this. This is the thing that I've been looking for, you know, that will make me like Harry Potter. But, you know, he didn't read tarot cards, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah, that feels very familiar to me. I feel like there's this magical seduction that can happen in the beginning. It's sort of this honeymoon of fantasy, and then, you know, when you stay down this path, other interesting things start to happen. You start to see
totally
a deeper and, dare I say, practical.
The real magic is found. The real
right. The real magic.
The real magic.
Exactly.
The real real specialness of tarot comes out when you really stick with it and you study it. And that's what happened to me. I started with tarot. I thought I was going to tell fortunes, like, oh, I'll be able to tell the future. Oh, and Miss Cleo was on TV too back then. I was like, oh, I kind of want to be like her, not thinking, she was, an actor at the time. Like, oh, I want to be like that. Tell people, yeah, that's the baby daddy. But when I stuck with it, I started reading into numerology and astrology and all types of metaphysics, psychic abilities. At that time too, I was having dreams that were coming true, and I was just trying to connect to that. And tarot really helped me connect to a whole, it was basically like the floodgate opened. It's like the like, what do they call it? The gateway drug. Tarot is like the gateway drug of divination.
Oh, that's too funny. So your life was transformed when you came across the tarot, and it's really become your path. And you've written this beautiful book about it.
Thank you. And it's published by Schiffer, and they did an outstanding job with the actual book itself. It's a beautiful hardcover book, and it features the Hermit card from the Tarot Illuminati from Eric Doon.
Oh, it's such, I opened it from the package when you sent it to me, and I just was blown away. It was such a beautiful book to just open up and experience and to have on the shelf and to reference. So, and one of the things I really liked about it is that in those beginning chapters, you're very personal and personable, like you are on this chat that we're having now, but you've got your personal story there, and then you go into a very clear articulation and understanding of how the tarot works, which I've not really seen as much in other tarot books. I mean, you've probably read way more than I have, but I have not seen this really clear breakdown before of different beliefs about how it works. And I could definitely see where I kind of fall in, and where Julian and I fall into our, I would say, and I'll have you talk about this a little more for our audience, but we fall under the psychological understanding of the archetypes and the imagery in the tarot, and using it so much for personal exploration and understanding. But you really got a camp for everyone posted up there and I think in the end it probably doesn't matter. It's just really helpful for you no matter what you believe. But I was just thinking it might be useful for our audience to talk a little bit about these ideas about how the tarot works, and for our audience to explore, which one feels resonant for you.
Definitely. And you mentioned that I go into detail about that subject, and I give different options. And I think that was one of the goals definitely of the book, was to talk about things that kind of get overlooked a little bit in tarot. And definitely how tarot works is often, addressed briefly. And I wanted to, put a little meat to that subject and other subjects too. But definitely when it comes to how tarot works, I had family over the other couple weeks ago, last month, and family cousins, and they know about the book and stuff like that. And she was asking me how does this work? Exactly, how can you read for someone over the internet, for example? And I'm not there, because they don't know anything about this. And so I explained to them. I go, there's the supernatural, and then there's a natural way of looking at tarot.
Yeah.
Do you think it's safe to say most people will fall into the supernatural?
I would say, and I'm out on a limb here, who knows, but I would say people historically have believed the supernatural approach to tarot, and that in kind of sort of the more modern, all these modern disciplines we have, such as psychology and philosophy and the study of those things, that that there's a growing amount of people who are seeing it in a natural light now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. So, psychology has been an amazing asset for tarot, for understanding and using the cards in a very different way, but mostly in the natural way too. You can use tarot naturally without any supernatural subscription, so to say. Right. So with supernatural, that's this is the classic viewpoint with divination, divination itself is a magical act. It's an act which you do in order to bridge the gap between man and God, or gods, the divine realm and the human realm. We use, historically, many societies have used divination. I was just I'm taking a class right now for my degree, and it was ancient Greece, and the term paper I wrote about was the Oracle Delphi. And the oracles in ancient Greece, for example, they had two types of people. They had oracles and they had the mantis. The mantis were the seers. These were the people who we are more connected with what we do than the oracle. For example, the Oracle Delphi and a tarot reader are very different. We can't compare those two. The oracle, was inspired by the god. She was a trance medium, so to say. Some would say she did trance work. She channeled the god. Other people say she, was just breathing in too much methane gas, and was just high off a rocker.
Yeah.
But so, and then you have the mantis, the people who were the freelancers, people who would travel around. They were on the battlefield. They were advising people. They would, read the entrails. They would read signs in the skies, or the flight paths of birds. These were the interpreters of signs and omens in the world. And that's what we do with the tarot. We take our cards, we shuffle them, we toss them down, and we're interpreting the cards, which are part of the natural world. They're objects in the world that we interact with and observe. With that, the interpretation, now here's the thing, so interpretation, is that interpretation magical? Is it supernatural in any way? The ancients, they believe the interpretation was a skill. These seers, their craft was called mantiki techni. So the techni is where we get the root word for technology, which is for craft or skill. So they were practicing a skill that they could learn. And tarot, is something that you can learn. You don't need to be born into a family of psychics or tarot readers or anything special. You can pick up the cards and just learn. So, and then with some of them, though, some seers, there are, history is kind of mixed. They believed it was a skill that you could learn, but also it's partly inspired. There's part of it that is inspired. The seers back then, they did not think of themselves as really telling the future. They did not proclaim that they're telling the future or that they had paranormal or supernatural abilities separate from the god that they were, being inspired by. So it's mixed. There's part spiritual, inspiration there, and there's also craft and skill that they learn. So it's a mix, and I think that's what we do too today. Where it's a skill that you learn, but also there is a spiritual component to it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot about. I'm actually the god Hermes is coming to me as you're talking about it, and that.
Yeah, he's the god of divination.
Yes, and his capacity to kind of move between worlds, and if you're roaming around in basically the psychic stuff, which psychologically we could see as the unconscious material, and then it's has its nature, and then if we when we try and bring it back into our daily lives, our ordinary world, how do we bring it over so that it makes sense for the lives that we're living? And I think that that's the gift of and the art of interpretation. It's an amazing experience to do that with the tarot in the modern world, and it's amazing how these very ancient images can feel very alive in our everyday encounters. And I would say that it has an enchanting effect on it offers so much to our daily lives. I think
it does. It offers the ability to connect.
Yeah, we can connect with others. We can connect with ourselves through it,
and awareness. It provides awareness.
Yes, also. It provides the special light on the life that you're living with a different glow of meaning or a connection to the gods. Connection to something other than just A, B, and C. I find it has an incredible enchanting effect on daily life.
It goes beyond the surface of things. When you're living when we live our lives at the surface of experience. and we don't really delve deep into really sit and reflect and to think when we're running around at work or we're, at the grocery store or something. But when we can take a minute in the morning or at night and pull a card for, what are the influences around me today? And you get a card, and you kind of can then put things that happen to you in a different viewpoint.
Exactly. I just love it for that. And I feel like this perspective and this tool that you can have in your life will transform the way you just see your own problems and see other people's problems, and it can bring things to a new level. I just love it. So under the supernatural, you go into detail in your book about the Akashic records and energy and synchronicity. Synchronicity is kind of, it feels like the gateway or the door that leads into the next section of the natural approach.
It borders it,
Yeah, it borders it because Carl Jung had his ideas on synchronicity, which really helped me to understand or approach the tarot in a new way. And did you want to say anything else more about the supernatural before we?
Yeah, the supernatural, it is also diverse. So you have the supernatural viewpoint, but then there's different viewpoints in the supernatural. You have the old school, direct communication to a god or spirit. So it's more personal, I would say that way, that you're interacting with an entity or an agent of the divine realm. Then you have less personal or impersonal supernatural, which would be the Akashic records, energy, forces, and synchronicity. Those things, from my view, there's no entity there that you're interacting with. It's more of like an abstract body of knowledge. For example, with the Akashic records, it's that non-physical realm where things, events in life are recorded down, and then you can access that information.
Yeah.
So you're not interacting with an agent. You're interacting with like a field of knowledge that you can get information from. And then you have energies and forces. Those, again, are more ambiguous and not personal, and hard to define, really. A close equivalent would be like the chi in Asian philosophy, kind of like just like the energy that moves all around us and animates life.
Yeah.
And then you have synchronicity, like you said, with Carl Jung, that, he believed that nothing was really random, that everything had meaning to it. Is that a good nutshell definition?
That's very nice. You're very clear. I like it. Yeah, the synchronicity being the meaningful meetings between conscious material and unconscious material. So when those two things meet, like when you have a dream and then there's something you see the next day, I guess we can see that kind of in a divinatory light, but we can also see that in a synchronistic way, like what's meeting here between the conscious world and the unconscious. Or when you, I feel like it's the experience whenever I turn over a tarot card and I'm like, that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
I feel like it's something inside of me that's meeting a mirror in the outside.
Have you ever, been shuffling your cards for a reading and you think to yourself, oh, I know what card's going to come up. It's going to be this card. It's going to be in the reading, and that card does come up?
Absolutely, yeah. It happens
all the time with me, too. People, will come to me for a reading. They tell me their situation. I already have a card in my mind of it's death card or something, or like sun or something. Like, this is going to be in this reading, and it comes up.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, is that my mind knowing really what's going on, or did I influence that? I don't know. It's just really interesting that I kind of, but it's also your intuitive language is in tarot. So when someone's talking to you, you kind of speak a tarot language, like, oh, that's such an emperor energy.
Right.
So you already recognize what's going on, and then tarot validates and says, yes, that is emperor energy.
And how good does it feel to share this experience? And I bet all of so many of our audience who plays with tarot cards or works with tarot cards, I'm sure they're having this experience too and are feeling like, yeah,
it's amazing.
We have that too. We know this exists. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's just one of those little moments where you kind of go like, yeah, we're synced right now. I mean, me and the cards are synced, and things are aligning up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good feeling. It's so rewarding, and it's just a wonderful experience. So moving now into the natural, This was a new word for me, but I was really excited about it because it relates to the way that I like to work with tarot, and actually relates to the deck that I created. Um, Correct me if I'm pronouncing it right, or if I'm not pronouncing it right. Apophenia?
Yeah, apophenia.
Yeah. So I work with cards, and I've made my own deck, which is all they are is pictures of billion-year-old stones that have naturally occurring imagery in them. So there's no labels, there's no numbers even. It's just imagery.
Oh, nice.
I have a connection for each card to the major arcana, but I leave that loose for people for their own interpretations. And can you speak more about this phenomenon that would fall into the natural, the apophenia?
Yeah, apophenia is a response to Carl Jung. So Carl Jung, came out with his, synchronicity theory, and then this guy Klaus Conrad in the 50s coined the term apophenia, which is, his skepticism towards it, and basically that our minds will look at things that are random and find a meaning in them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we put the meaning into something that's random, and we do this, and they've done studies on this, that, when you're looking at clouds, and we see faces, or you're looking at, we see faces and everything because we're programmed as, humans to recognize faces right away.
Exactly, because I've heard several theories on this. When we're infants, the world is a blur. We're trying to make sense of it, but it's in our minds. We need to be able to see a face to survive, because we need to know someone's there to take care of us. So it's sort of an inborn thing, but there's also, the survival element of when we get older and we were in the, a camouflaged world and we needed to hunt for animals or protect ourselves from other people. And we would need to make out the human form or humans or other kinds of faces in nature.
Yeah, exactly.
For survival.
Yeah.
So it's very ingrained, it's very imprinted. So when we see randomness, our mind is searching for
order.
How, we're looking for faces, we're looking for those other beings out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is sort of related to Rorschach, perhaps, and I think it's part of the story, right? It doesn't feel like it's the whole story with tarot, but it does feel like, we do have this great capacity to see things in things and use our imaginations and really open up a new world.
Yeah. And with this kind of mindset that if, when we interpret things that are random, this view would then say, well, tarot is then all random. It has no meaning.
Right.
And that when you do a reading, you're, tossing cards randomly, and you are trying to make sense out of that. You're looking for meaning. You're putting meaning into the randomness. Which
feels a little, Cartesian, like we're the holders of meaning and we're just projecting it on the world. So it's it feels a little sad to me,
Yeah.
It feels it has a good, scientific grounding for using the tarot, but it feels like there's more to the story.
It's too materialistic.
It's very materialistic, yeah. And
yeah.
I feel like there's more of a dialogue. I feel when I use the tarot and the stones that I use, I feel like they have something that they're showing me, and I have something that I'm bringing to the table, and that the two are dialoguing. That's my experience anyway.
Yeah, and then going along with this line of thought as well, they would say that no matter what card comes up in a reading, you can always apply it to the situation. So you really can't be wrong in a reading because every card applies.
Do you think that's true?
Maybe to some degree. I was recently at a tarot class, the tarot salon with the tarot school, with the amber stones. And Wald, likes to, he makes I'm paraphrasing that he says, the card, the tarot deck each image is a self-portrait of the self. And each card is doing something at some time inside you.
Mm-hmm.
You're living the tarot. It's happening inside you. Justice is doing something inside you. The Two of Wands is doing something inside you. It might be active or passive, or might be dominant, or whatever it is. But everything's going on. So in one way, you can, I would say, with that thinking, when he says that, my reasoning would be then, yeah, anytime then if any card comes up, you can identify it somehow, some way with you.
Ah, interesting. That's really, I feel resonance with that. And it's bringing up a memory of when Julianne and I would work with cards together. She would do archetypal readings with me, and I would do a tarot for her. And it was so interesting the different ways that we would choose cards. We would have them face down, and I always kind of use my hand, and I always feel this. I feel something on the inside. It's almost a physical feeling, like a sensation or a burning, like, oh, it's that one.
Yeah.
But her approach is much more, it could be any card. It's just pick anyone. There's no wrong card, And
yeah.
It's just so, and I think both are absolutely correct, and I think it's about your own individual approach and feeling with that.
Exactly. But as long as you walk away with meaning from it,
Yeah.
and you walk away with something, then it doesn't matter how it works as long as you got something out of it.
Have you ever had a meaningless reading?
Sometimes, I guess. But you know what? If I pull a card and I don't understand, it's probably because I don't have enough context, or I need to wait for things to transpire for it to make more sense. 2020, hindsight's 2020, they say. But yeah, it happens. Sometimes you can't see that. You just don't understand what's being told to you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I hear that the stronger you feel about what you're bringing to the cards, the stronger the reading is.
That's what I was gonna try. My mind went blank. I was like, oh, what was I gonna say next? But it was that. Even if the cards are all random and you could apply each card to something in your life, how strongly does it feel though? Sometimes you pull a card and you go, oh my God, yes. Strong,
yeah.
Strong recognition that this card, there's no way that card came up for this. Like freaking, like no way. And then there's some, but then you can say, let's say you switch that card out with a different card and say, what if this card came up? How strongly would there have been a resonation with that card for that question?
Yeah, I feel like some are very stronger than others for sure.
Yeah. So you just have to gauge how strong of a connection it is.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to take this conversation about feeling strongly about a card and move into we love to choose a card for every interview that we do on this series of the podcast. And and we've spoken in advance that the card Temperance is one that you're interested in at this time.
Yes, Temperance.
Yes, I'm so excited that you've chosen this because I feel like it's a theme and a card that's up for both Julianne and I when we last checked in. It's also a card that I feel like I'm the least historically connected to. Like it's a card I don't understand as much as other cards. So I would love to delve into this card and to see, what your view on it, how it might be applying to struggles or themes that we're facing in this day and age. And, anything you got on the Temperance, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, so Temperance for me, it's this card that resonates with me because we live in a world today, I guess, of extremism on many different levels. We have extremism in society on like the level of food. Where, there's people who eat too much. There's people who eat too little. There's in politics. There's people too far to the left. There's people too far to the right. You have religious fundamentalism and extremism. You have terrorism. Fueled by political ideology that's extremist on one side. Religion that fuels it. You have society that tells you to live life to an extreme. That if you're not doing X, Y, Z, you're not living fully. So I feel like we have a society that, makes it appealing or desirable to have a life in excess. Excess is another way of, describing extreme. Extremity can be, worded as excess too, because it's too much of something. And, we want, like, at least in American society, I find it's like, you want to have a big house, you want to have a big car, you have to have a job that makes you lots of money, you have to have lots of things. If you don't have a lot of anything, one thing, or you don't have a life that, seems to be minimal, then you're not living.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that? Am I picking up on?
Oh man, well, I mean, just looking at the news recently,
Yeah.
it's all extreme, and it feels good to hear about a card that is, that might be addressing this. So what does Temperance have to offer this extremist mindset?
Temperance is the middle way. Different schools of thought, whether it be Aristotle's golden mean or the Buddhist middle path, it's all about living life in accordance with the laws of nature, the natural world, to live in accordance with those rules and those laws, and not fall into excess or extremes or one side or the other. You have to be balanced in life.
Mhm.
You can't fall on one side, because then life is unbalanced and things kind of fall out of whack.
So let's remind me of the image of the Temperance. It's a woman, right? Is she?
Yeah,
she's an
it's
angel?
an ambiguous figure. It's an angel. I'm trying to remember which angel it is. It is Angel Michael, I think.
Oh wow.
And Michael, yeah, in the Bible, I'm trying to read it out. I'm reading out of my book a little bit. I have the chapter open. It says, I wrote, in the Bible, Michael is known to have defeated Lucifer before casting him out of heaven. In art, a common depiction of Michael shows him slaying a dragon, which is, Lucifer. This is the triumph of light over dark. So too does Temperance overcome darkness with light by accepting the dark as an essential part of light, keeping it in balance.
This is reminding me so much of, I read a book recently called How to Be Idle.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Hodgkinson, I think, that after the disease. But I loved this book because it was all about how to do nothing.
Yeah.
Which is the total antidote to, I think, our daily lifestyle, which is all action. Kind of doing everything to the extreme. And this was a book on all of the wonderful things in life that weren't those, busyness things. And it's interesting too, because it includes subjects that might be kind of a bit taboo, in terms of like smoking is one chapter, drinking is another chapter, sleeping in, kind of vices that, these are things that we've seen as vices. And I think the message ultimately of the book is, of course, don't fall into not doing anything ever, but that we've got to have this balance of doing and not doing, and that the creative energies, the connections to ourselves, the true connections to others happens when we're not doing a whole lot in the extreme.
Yes, definitely. And temperance is moderation. It's knowing how much is enough.
Yes.
And knowing when too little is, too little.
Right. And so this angel is a guide for us in
reminding us. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and it kind of, I would love to take it into the dieting realm too. I mean, there's a diet book for everything.
Yeah.
And it's all extreme, like you can never eat this again, or don't do this, and if you eat a lot of this, then you'll be fine. And I've been tapping into more books about, really sensing and feeling your, what's going on in the somatic realm when you eat. Are you full? Are you over full? And really having more of a sense of where you're at with anything, as opposed to like, don't do this and do this and all those sort of external measures.
Yeah, and Temperance would say, like for food, for diet, Temperance would say you need to moderate. It's personal. Everyone's physiological makeup is different. Like for me, example, I need to moderate my carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Greek. That's very hard. I like bread. like my bread and my pasta. Don't tell me I can't have my bread.
Oh my gosh, I know. I just got an Italian
Mediterranean
cookbook
thing.
too.
But you have to know when too much is too much. And I remember
Right.
a month ago I cut out carbs and I lost weight very quickly. But the moment I started eating them again, it came back. So I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's what this Health at Every Size is the book, and it speaks about how cutting everything out is pretty unrealistic, and then when you go back, it's actually worse.
Yeah, so you have to find out what's the middle ground for yourself. Like what is equilibrium? What is equilibrium for me, for food?
Right.
And not try to fall into extremes of I can't eat this or I need lots of this. Too much of a good thing is bad, they say.
Right, and if all of us can find this on an individual level with the way that we live our lives, can that affect the larger picture? Where there's extremes, as you say, everywhere, and polarity. If we can learn how to find our middle way and live it, how profoundly can this affect the larger scope?
Yeah, and one of the things that in society that fuels this extremism, I think, is fear.
Mm-hmm.
We're living in a society of fear right now. Everything is fear generated, and when you do that, it makes people react extremely. Look at our politics right now. Look at the politics for the last, God knows, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, since I was a kid, it's been about fear. Fear this person, fear that thing. This is what's going to kill you. This is, it's everything is out to hurt you. Mm-hmm. And people react extremely, they'll go one way. They won't think because they just want to protect themselves, and they're fearful.
That's right. And how much will fear affect the upcoming election is pretty interesting, right?
It is. It's all about fear. It's fear. Trump.
Right.
We can go a little bit into it. Trump. Is based his whole thing on fear. These people are no good for this country. They want to come in and ruin it for you. And everyone's like, no, rah rah, make America great. Bullshit.
Right. Right.
And then so Hillary is going to respond, well, we need to be fearful if Trump becomes president, so vote for me. It's like, she's trying to do the lesser of evil kind of thing, like I'm the lesser evil. Well, she's not saying that, but people are going to look at that and be like, well, she's the lesser evil. Trump is really evil. It's been like that for such a long time. Mm-hmm. we vote for the lesser evil. Right.
Gosh, we're almost getting into the devil card here.
Yeah, now we're going to the devil a little bit because now we're here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Let's stay on temperance.
Right. So I think, this is just amazing to see temperance as a guide through this time. I'm just realizing this as we're talking about it, and it's just a card that I never really understood, but I feel like it might be something that's been in my shadow, maybe in the shadow of the culture. And really needs to be accessed at this time and dialogued with.
Oh, yeah, of course. And astrologically, temperance is Sagittarius.
Oh.
And Sagittarius is is understanding, very open-minded, benevolent, likes freedom and exploration, wants to explore the world. And so when you have temperance, it influences temperance to be communicative and expresses cooperation between oppositions.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
So you see the mixing of the two cups. Usually it's two different elements. You're combining and you're trying to mix and, find a way to cooperate. So there's a more practical, other meanings to the temperance card. I see this card also about cooperation and collaboration and communication and, coming to terms of understanding one another. And that goes back into moderation. If you want to moderate something, you need to understand it better. What's causing the extremism?
Well, I just can't help but dive into a political
I know.
question.
It's important. It's really important what's going on right now.
It is. So there's a pretty fun part of your book, which is about making predictions come out of the Democratic results between Bernie and Hillary. And what card did you choose, and how did you interpret it?
Oh, God, I think it was the Six of Wands, easy for her. I think she got Six of Wands. I was like, fuck, I'm like, she's going to win.
So why the Six of Wands? What is it? How was that so definitive? Can you?
It's for me, that is the victory card.
Oh, I see.
That is the winner. That is someone who's triumphed and won over their enemies. Because if you look at the Five of Wands, we have a competition between five people, and then in the Six, we have one person on their horse, marching in with supporters, and they're the victor.
Oh, wow, how interesting.
Yeah.
And so, when are you going to do your prediction for Trump and Hillary?
Probably closer, right around the election.
And
probably
so, is this a practice you do, that it's these predictions you do very close to the event? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Usually, I like to do every year the Super Bowl readings to see who's going to win the Super Bowl. I really don't care about the Super Bowl except for the halftime show and fun commercials. But it's a good way to show, can tarot do that? Can tarot make predictions on that stuff? And more times than not, it has been correct on my Super Bowl predictions. And I do it on the day of the Super Bowl because I feel that the closer you are to the event transpiring, the more accurate the reading can be.
Yeah, and it relates to what we were talking about earlier about how strongly you feel about something makes for a better reading. I'm sure there's so much energy in the air around the game that day or around the election that day, that it's probably going to just give it more more charge.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. This is really a territory that Julie and I we haven't explored too much on this tarot. We're very psychologically oriented with our looking at the archetypes. But I'd love to talk a little bit about that because we do have audience members who are interested in this, what we've called the woo-woo, but we will.
I try to keep it woo-woo free. It's funny because I also with Temperance, I have my foot on land and foot in water, so I see myself as more of a logical reader.
Yeah, you seem that way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, instead of like everyone's all, I'm intuition, follow your, your gut. I'm just like, well, I'm looking at this logically that, and I kind of wanted to debate someone about this. I want to do a video with this that, intuitive versus logical.
Oh, interesting.
And because with the cards, when I throw cards down, I'm looking at it, I feel like my mind is doing a lot of work where it's making the connections. It's looking at, the ratio of elements or majors or what's coming up, and then just it's looking for all those patterns, and it's trying to connect the dots. And then if I see this card with this card, well, it's going to mean this. It's like a formula. It's like a math equation. You have 1 + 1 is going to be 2. If you have 2 cups and lovers, it looks like it's going to be a good partnership just because you can understand those elements, add them together, you get a result. There's really no intuition on that level.
Wow. Well,
for me,
maybe we should do that debate because I am not very logical. I'm like a feeling intuitive. That's actually my Jungian makeup on the Myers-Briggs test. I would have a hard time reading tarot that way, but I can really appreciate that approach. And,
but I don't devoid myself of the intuition.
Right.
When it does come up, when it shows its face, I recognize it and I write it down and I make it known to whoever I'm reading that this is something that kind of came in that that I heard, or it happens from time to time, but it's not the basis of what I do. That when you come to me, you're getting a full blown intuitive. There's structure what I do, and then intuition kind of provides commentary. For example, I was reading for a client for a New Year reading for her, and her card for the year was the Hermit card, and I got insight intuitively saying, this year I feel like you have to wise up. You can't be naive anymore. You need to be more wise. And just, wise up was the word that came to me. And then she wrote back, she goes, oh my God, I was just thinking to myself last week how I need to be more wise, or I need to wise up in life. I was like, well, there you go. And that's intuition, that was prompted by the Hermit.
So it's really important to come to the tarot as a whole person. You've got your logical mind, and you have your emotional qualities, you have your intuitive qualities, and I think bringing that all is a way to allow it all to be awakened. And
definitely, temperance. You have to moderate all those elements.
right, exactly. So too much intuition might be a kind of a too ethereal of a reading. Too much logic might be just too in the mind. And so, I think that's a balance point. Find that balance there. You talk about the word fortune teller in your book, and it was interesting what you had noticed in the community of people who work with tarot, that this really has started to become sort of a taboo word. And I can understand it, because in the work that I have cut out doing tarot or working with cards has been to help people. It's a little more on the counseling end, though I'm not a registered therapist, but it's more of a advising, consultation approach, and self-exploration. And I didn't want people to think that I was reading their future. But I wasn't aware until I read your book about how real, that taboo has become, that people are not fortune tellers and who do tarot, and they feel very strongly about it. How do you understand this title or this word or identity, and how have you sort of reclaimed it, or what's your relation to it?
My relationship to it is always an ongoing process. I don't officially call myself a fortune teller. I will throw it around, to people who are not, initiated into the metaphysical world like we are. Someone I'm talking to casually, and I say, look, I do tarot, and they go, well, what's that? I'm like, I'm like a fortune telling, and they go, oh, and it's a way just for them to kind of get an idea of what
to be familiar, right?
To be familiar, and then I go, well, I do fortune telling, but I don't do fortune telling. It's kind of like that.
Oh, that's nice. So yeah, I found that was my biggest struggle when I was first getting started. Is I wanted to tell people what I was doing, but I didn't want them to get confused and see me with the turban on and whatever. I didn't want to be stigmatized or whatever. So I think it's an interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. I was just finishing up.
And one of the I guess the criticism of fortune telling is that people will say fortune telling is not empowering. That it doesn't really serve any benefit to the client if you're just doing fortune telling. And I think that's a misconception, because knowing the future, let's say you are doing fortune telling, you're telling someone this, this is what's going to happen. You're doing prediction work. Predictive readings is fortune telling. You're telling someone the future. But if you know what's going on, if you have an idea of what could happen or what's coming down your way, you're better prepared.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can either be ready for it if it can't be changed, or if it can be changed, you can do your goddamn best to change it.
Right.
If you don't like what's coming down the pike.
That's right. And it helps you to just take the space and the time to look at all the possibilities of what's happening.
Yeah.
And
I remember when I was in high school, when I was, doing tarot in the beginning, I was really into the fortune telling and the predictions. And I would always test it to see if I can, what I can, find out. And I remember one time, oh my God, this was insane. I was in math class, and we took a math test, and I wanted to know what grade I was going to get. And I wish I saved the formula of how I did this. Like, I pulled 5 or 6 cards, and there was this website that had numbers associated for each card. So I added up like all those numbers for what those cards were associated for, and then I divided by like 2 or something or whatever it was, and I got 84, and I got an 84 on the test. I was like, oh, like when I'm sitting in class going, holy shit, and everyone's like looking at me. I'm like, nothing, never mind.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's fortune telling. That's predictive right there. That's a clear example.
Wow. Well, I haven't even explored that whole territory of the tarot, but I wanted to let our audience know that you go into quite a bit of detail about how you do that, and you give sample readings and samples games and results, and if people are interested in that, they can take a look in your chapters of your book.
Yes, definitely.
When is it being released, or is it just out?
It's actually released right now. It was released in April. The official release was actually at Reader Studio in April. I had copies there. Schiffer was there, and it sold out so fast at Reader Studio. I was busy. I was so busy signing books, my pens dried up.
Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic! Congratulations.
Yeah, that's great. People can go on Amazon to order a copy, or if you want to order a copy for me to have it signed, you can do that on my website, angelonasios.com.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations on your book. I was lucky to get one of your earliest copies. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And we can also find you on Facebook and Twitter,
YouTube, and Instagram.
You're all over the place.
Yeah, I try a little bit. I like to be out there in the atmosphere or the cyber world. I'm actually going to be in. I'll be presenting at TarotCon in October with the Tarot Association.
Oh, fantastic!
Yes, it's great. I'm looking forward to it. It's in October, the weekend of the 9th, I believe, and I might be at Comic-Con as well in New York City. I might be there one day. It's up in the air at the moment.
Oh, nice. Well, and all of this information will be on your website?
Yes, it will be up on there shortly.
Oh, excellent. Well, that would be just great to meet you in person, get a signed book.
Yeah.
Talk more tarot. We just really loved having you on our podcast. Thank you so much for contacting us and talking about temperance. And let us know what your predictions are for the election. I'd be super, super interested.
Oh yeah, I'm probably gonna do a video on that or a blog. So
YouTube, boy, okay,
yeah,
so stay tuned for that.
Yep, blog. So yeah, it'll be up there.
Oh my gosh, and just know that the only fear is fear itself, right?
Totally.
All right. Well, I thank you so much, Angelo, for joining us, and we hope to see you around somewhere in the tarot community out there.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a great pleasure, great conversation. I hope to do it again.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to become a part of the Archetypal Tarot team by becoming one of our patrons. Our patrons are awesome. So if you're interested, visit tiny.cc/tarot for more information and the awesome rewards for joining. That's tiny.cc/tarot. Aloha, podcast listeners. Thank you so much for your patience with us. I just realized that this is the first podcast of 2016 and we're already 8 months in. So that little sabbatical was not really planned to be that long, but Cyndera and I do promise to be much better about getting podcasts out on a regular basis. Our goal is to do it monthly. More on that coming up. And thank you for your patience, and we really hope you enjoyed the show. We have some great people lined up for future interviews, so stay tuned with us and find us on Twitter and on Facebook. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We love hearing your suggestions. So aloha, and you'll be hearing more from us soon.